Good evening. First tonight, feeding the country after Brexit. We've been asking political candidates in Oxfordshire about whether they think leaving the EU will affect food standards in the UK. They've been discussing the implications of future trade deals with the US and what Brexit means for farmers and us as consumers. Jessica Bannon reports.
Look what's coming up now.
It's the general election where nobody knows quite what to expect next. And hitting the headlines this week, uncensored government documents covering 2 years of US-UK trade discussions. Part of the agenda, talks on food standards, specifically the US asking the UK to diverge from existing EU standards, like allowing the chlorination of chicken done to remove bacteria. For David, who runs a dairy farm near Abingdon, UK farmers are at the forefront of maintaining high environmental standards.
There's always more we can do. And I think the important point is that UK farmers are up for the challenge here and we want to get better. It's part of our overall stewardship of the land, it's what we do. So we're keen to embrace this and adopt these new ideas, these new technologies and learn from each other so we can get better and ultimately lower our environmental footprint.
So he's concerned about the impact Brexit could have on the quality of our food and has this to ask of our politicians.
UK farmers are committed to producing to really high standards with low emissions. Are you going to ensure that any food that is imported to the UK has to be produced to those same high standards?
Well, I put David's question to candidates from across Oxfordshire.
The public are overwhelmingly in favour of retaining those high animal welfare standards, and it's really critical for all of our health as well that those standards are preserved. So I think many people have been quite shocked to see that the British government, Conservative government, has not been pushing back strongly when the United States has said that it might want to see a reduction in those standards.
The Americans can put forward what they like in a trade deal, but it doesn't mean to say that we accept it. And in the case of food standards, we don't accept it, and we're not going to go along with it. And I think that's the end of the story.
Agriculture is also currently responsible for about 9% of the UK's greenhouse gas emissions.
Our proposals is to bring in a carbon tax, and that would not just apply to products that are made in this country or to outputs from carbon in this country. We would also be looking at imports that are coming into the country and checking their carbon element and taxing them accordingly.
Well, we need to say upfront and clearly that we won't sign up to any deals that undermine key commitments like the Paris commitment on climate change, and we won't sign up to any deals that mean that our farmers here have to be facing cheaper, low-quality goods from abroad.
Well, there's one thing all the parties do agree on. Brexit and climate change are two of the biggest issues facing the UK, and no doubt at the forefront of voters' minds when they go to the polls in a few weeks' time. Jessica Bannon, BBC South Today.